Have we taken on too much? A critical review of the sustainable HCI landscape. This work was co-authored by myself and my fabulous PhD supervisors Bran, Knowles and Adrian Friday. So, have we taken on too much? Well, yes. In our paper we argue that while embracing research that is diverse and holistic, the sustainable HCI community has painted itself into a corner with no direct path to driving change. We also argue that if ambitious climate policies were in place, SHCI could constructively apply a more traditional skill set to help realize those policies, a pathway which we call green policy informatics. Starting with this rather bold conclusion, let me walk you through our analysis. Our research was initially inspired by calls to move away from individual behavior change, like eco-feedback technology. Deeply ingrained in traditional SHCI research, it accounted for 45% of the literature in 2010. The problems with this work are manifold and include the view that people are rational consumers with a large capacity for action, but also its overall effectiveness, and perhaps more fundamentally, the idea that unsustainability can be solved on an individual level. So we wanted to dig deeper and understand how the field had progressed and whether we had identified and adopted constructive strategies for impacting environmental unsustainability, especially related to climate change. To do so, we created two corpora, details on which can be found in our paper. In the first corpus, we collected SHCI critique papers. Here you can see the distribution and publication venues. The key question driving our analysis was, what are these critiques asking SHCI researchers to do? So let me tell you about the array of essential new competencies entailed in these critiques. First, critics have called for multidisciplinary expertise and collaboration, which includes expertise in climate science, for example, greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprints, biodiversity and life cycle analysis, but also behavioral science and collaborations with computer scientists and community organizations. In the midst of this multidisciplinary curriculum, the community has been urged to reach a shared definition or framing of sustainability, where viewpoints range from concerns about definitions that have become so broad as to become meaningless, to calls for more comprehensive views and suggestions to orient the field around climate change. In addition, the community has been asked to embrace systems thinking. They should move away from simple models, learn about practices from social and cultural research, and about consumption that is shaped by infrastructures, technologies, and institutions. Arisen from a more holistic thinking, a frequent call was to design for system change. This includes efforts to support activism and mass movements, as well as to influence institutions, infrastructures, and policies. Finally, to address the fundamental tension between sustainability and the aim of economic growth, critics have called to reimagine and design for new economic models and potentially degrowth. So, to what extent has the community been able to translate this advice into action? To answer this, we created a second corpus with recent HCI papers on sustainability. What we found was work around community and policy awareness, whereby the focus tended to be on the knowledge created during the research or design process. This was mirrored in a large number of non-interventional studies. We also noted a shift in the underlying approach towards reflection and speculation. Often participatory, such design research was more experimental and possibility-oriented in nature, and aimed to expand the research community's horizon, thereby forward a more stringent behavior classification, one that underpins traditional persuasive work. The papers in our corpus frequently view environmental and other kinds of sustainability notably social and economic sustainability, as interlinked and address them together. The methodological choices indicate this too. For research with a substantial human element, authors tended to choose qualitative methods. Although the research approaches and contexts have changed, we see in our corpus that energy remained a key theme. In addition to, however, we also see an embrace of topics like biodiversity, food and agriculture, fabrication, sea level rise, and waste or e-waste. So in addition to expertise in what we might regard as traditional core areas of HCI, like interface design, user psychology, and technological innovation, our analysis shows a substantial expansion of knowledge and skills required by SHCI researchers. While we fully recognize that sustainability is more than just climate change, and that SHCI projects can have positive impacts and help us explore, provoke, or enhance our understanding in profoundly different ways, we believe that our review is telling a story, that technologists cannot be expected to do the work of policymakers. Similar to collapse informatics, we would like to outline a new space for impact that starts from an alternative assumption, the assumption of ambitious climate policy being in place. As an initial suggestion, we call the space Green Policy Informatics. In Green Policy Informatics, HCI has a clear role in working towards the emission constraints like extraction caps, emission taxes, or limits on consumption set by policymakers. Applying the knowledge of smart solutions, data visualizations, and user-centered design, the HCI community could, for example, make valuable contributions to support complex decision-making under uncertainty and enable the deconstruction of popular myths about the energy and carbon impacts of everyday life. Let's not allow policymakers to frame the climate change debate as an individual behavior change or a technologist problem. We can bring our knowledge and expertise to the table, but to focus on what we do best, we need them to enact more radical policies. Thank you for listening. Please reach out with any questions.